Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada.
Just to kind of jump into it, Eliisa works with a company called Cronometer, for those of you listening, and I just formed a partnership with Cronometer, which I am like beyond excited about. Because Eliisa, I've been using Cronometer, I think since, what do we say, 2016?
Earlier than that, it was actually 2015.
2015. Wow. So I'm in there about 6 years now. And what was ironic was I messaged Cronometer in I think around the new year, like, hey, like we should talk, because I was using it so much, and I'm such a believer in it. And a lot of my challenges were starting to dive into it. And Elisa's like, yeah, we should form a partnership. And we ended up like, taking not even that much time. I think we formed a partnership, and now we've been getting a lot of my challengers into using it. I never push counting macros. I just know if someone's open to doing it, they're gonna, it relieves so much stress in my life. So I wanted to bring Eliisa on because she knows about as much about Cronometer as anyone I've ever met. And I wanted just to kind of make this a little bit of a back and forth, a little bit of a discussion on what Cronometer is, the functions, how the company has evolved. And I think there's actually a misconception about how a lot of people are like, oh, measuring macros stresses me out. It actually de-stresses me because I know what's going into my body, and just having that level of comfort every day, being able to track, and everything's got a memory now. So you just go in there and it remembers your foods that you're consuming, and you just click enter, and it just adds everything up, including the micronutrients. So D, I wanted to start off with Eliisa right now and just give a little, Eliisa, if you don't mind, can you just go into a quick, like the simplest breakdown? What is Cronometer for describing this to my 12-year-old son?
Okay, yeah. So there's other nutrition trackers on the market, and they all will track calories and macronutrients. For people who don't know what a macronutrient is, those are carbs, fats, and protein. Like Don said, people that track them, like you can't track what you don't measure, right? Where we're really different and why we're special, I think, beyond our amazing team, because we have a team of about 34 people that are so data nerdy, we're so passionate about what we do, is that we do dive into the micronutrients quite a bit, and then we are really accurate. So other trackers, you might think because you're logging something that it has X amount of calories, but those can be crowdsourced. So that means that the person sitting beside you on the bus essentially could have entered it, and it could be wrong. We check all of those before it goes to our user database. And so for people who are tracking nutrition, you might as well have the best and most accurate tracker. So
right.
That's where we differentiate. And that's probably why, you've had success. You can count on our numbers. So yeah, it's been around.
Sorry, I was just laughing. Someone just walked into my room. They just gave me a total. Did you just see that, Derek?
I told you. Keep the door shut.
Was it housekeeping?
Yeah, it was housekeeping, because there was something going on with the light in my room, and they just walked in and they totally threw me a curveball. I turned around, some guys came there like.
Yeah. Housekeeping is a safe word.
Oh, okay.
Derek, God, Derek, he's like going so overboard here. I'm offended. I'm offended. So yeah, so I have seen that with some of the other trackers, how in the past you are able to log in specific macronutrients. Now, there's different types of governing bodies I've noticed on Cronometer, and was it nccb and FDA? Am I saying that right? Yeah, right. But what is it? Thank you. I'm getting good at this. But there's actually some different governing bodies to specific foods. So if I type in jasmine rice, you actually have the decision to choose what governing body, has almost verified that, correct? So how does someone know? Like, how does someone know, what the best one is? It automatically filters it, but you could remove specific governing bodies and just have, say, nccb or FDA just to prove that. Can you break that down a little bit just to simplify it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you nailed it. It's the nccb database they have all of the micronutrients and they're actually like lab analyzed. So their information can be more accurate than a food manufacturer's nutrition label, which is really cool. So we always recommend that people use those entries because they are the most accurate and the most comprehensive. And like you said, you can choose how you filter them. A lot of people, you know, they go to like Trader Joe's and they get some bread and they want to enter that specifically, but it's limited to 14 to 16 nutrients, whereas the NCCB has 77 to 80 nutrients listed. So what does that, like, why does that matter? I guess a lot of people would wonder. And it just comes down to having like a much more holistic view of health. So people that might have deficiencies or not sure if they're getting enough vitamins and minerals, or taking a supplement, a multivitamin, they might not need it. And with our data, you can know exactly where you're missing the mark. Which, like, for me personally, I was deficient in magnesium and I didn't know, and I was experiencing all these symptoms that are associated with a deficiency. And then I went to my physician. We looked in Cronometer at 2 years worth of data, and she's like, whoa, you haven't been getting any magnesium. So I started supplementing, and then sure enough, like, my symptoms essentially went away. So that's where we're really different. And the other thing is, you know, like, having spent some time now with your challengers, Dawn, obviously there's a number of people with a wide variety of goals, and Cronometer can cater to anybody. But where we're really good for everybody is, you know, you had some people that wanted to lose weight. If you are limited to say 1,600 calories a day and the entries are wrong, then you might be over consuming, not meeting your goals, feeling frustrated as to why it's not working. That just won't happen in our app that way. So we really help people reach their goals with our accurate data.
This is really interesting because it's almost like we're entering this era of like flight data recorder. So if we find something wrong, we can go back and look at the data, like you've said there. Whereas 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you go to the doctor, you're like, yeah, I have abdominal pain. And then they just ask you questions and you have no reliable data really. And you're probably going to lie about your diet. And, you know, it's like going to the dentist and they ask you, have you been flossing and your gums are bleeding all over the place? And you're like, yeah, every day. So this is a bit of it helps people do an audit, I guess, even when you go to a healthcare professional, a specialist, or, you know, just even having that's probably pretty useful.
Well, I couldn't agree more. There's so many benefits, even that transcend health. You know, like, think about how expensive supplements are these days. You might be supplementing something that you don't need, you know, and there can be, on the opposite side of being deficient in something, there can be toxicity with different overconsumptions of different vitamins. So like, we're kind of skirting a fine line. And you're right that this data is all available now. Like, nutrition science is very, very new. Like, we're constantly learning a lot more. And like, I'm sure, Dawn, you've been in the health and fitness space forever. Like, how many diets have you seen, you know, come out, be successful, then like debunked, right? Like, this is all relatively new, but I'm so excited because I think that we're on the precipice of having so much more information that will hopefully keep people healthier longer, and then, you know, keep people out off medications and that kind of thing. So,
you know, what's interesting, what's interesting about it is, you know, there's two ways that I like to break down nutrition when someone's diving into to a plan or my plan. I'm like, well, listen, you can either measure through palm, fist, cupped hand, thumb, which is just basically intuitive eating. You're just, you know, you're getting your protein, you're getting your vegetable, you're getting your slow burning carbohydrate. And according to the size of your palm, that might match up against your protein size, or your fats would be, for a male, say 2 thumbs, or a female would be 1. This is just an intuitive way of being able to turn around. Derek's laughing. An intuitive way to
what
be
if
able
you're
to
wearing mittens?
I started laughing because I knew the bad dad joke was coming, and you start setting in around 42. That's when I started saying the bad dad joke. Derek's a little older than me, so he's a little heavier on him. But
Just
Derek,
a little.
well done. Just a little bit. But, you know, the intuitive eating portion of it, I do like, and I think that most people out there can do it. and they will see a level of improvement if food quality is a huge factor and they're throwing in exercise, et cetera. But I've also found that the majority of the general public out there has no idea how they're eating. And when they think, and I'm going to go as bold to say that 9 out of 10 times, and I'm downplaying this a little bit. I almost said 10 out of 10 times. 9 out of 10 times when I go through a nutrition plan with someone, there is so much volatility from day to day. They might be choosing a lot of the right foods, or they think it's the right food, but the quantity is just, there's so much volatility in the quantity. One day they're consuming 180 grams of protein. The next day they're consuming 80. One day they're at 250 grams of carbs. The next day they're at 100. And with all of that volatility, with this consistency is going to come, I think the potential for you to plateau and to not be able to consistently see improvement, Derek, because it's like running drills that you're giving someone, or turning around and giving someone specific exercises in the gym. You need them to practice that with a level of consistency day in and day out. If I jump on your sprint program and one day I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to do Derek's program to the T, and the next couple of days, I'm either not doing anything or I'm throwing in so much volume to where it could be hindering my progress, or so little volume where it's like, all right, whatever, your body's not going to show that level of improvement. I think it's no different with nutrition. And once we start getting all that volatility kind of confined to a little bit of a tighter space, and I'm not saying that you have to be to the gram. Even when I'm doing shoots, I'm never to the gram. Like if I'm 5-10 grams off, if I'm, let's be 5 to 10 grams off, depending on what it is. I mean, fats, that could be 90 calories. And when you start adding that number up with carbs and protein, if that's off, yeah, you could be 200 calories off a day. That to me, I think is a lot. But if you're off, just 5 grams of fat, or like just 5 grams of protein, everything else is within that number, you're more than fine. But Eliisa, have you found that? Have you noticed that when people start tracking and logging, they don't necessarily, they're not necessarily eating the way they think that they're eating?
Oh, I think that people are so shocked by just little things that you don't know how many calories they're in. Like adding milk and sugar to a coffee takes, coffee, which essentially has very few, if any, calories, to like over 100 calories. Like little things like that, people are probably like, oh, I'm just like drinking this, and that's when Cronometer really comes in, or any nutrition tracking. Like you did mention that some people use, their thumbs or palms or whatever. I want anyone to track in whatever way is going to work for them, because I believe that tracking something is better than tracking nothing, right? But you are absolutely correct. Like for me, I eat relatively the same thing a lot of the time. I'm a creature of habit, and I know what fits in my macros. But you're right, something like one chicken breast completely can change someone's protein intake for the day. Like there is so much differentiation. And if someone's consistently like crushing it at the gym, like I don't know if you're a trainer, Derek, but if someone's like constantly at the gym, and why wouldn't you want the same consistency with your diet? Why wouldn't you want to do everything in your power to feel your best, look your best, everything, right? So I think that most people, I always tell my friends that don't track, because a lot of people can find it tedious. I don't. I've been tracking every day for 3.5 years, and it's just part of my life now. I'm like you, Dawn. I'm a lifer. But people are like, oh, it's tedious. And like, you know what? Just log for a week everything that passes your lips. I'm sure you'll be shocked. And then there's like sneaky calories, like you grab some French fries from your kid's plate or whatever, like things like that. They just add up. So I think that everyone should just try tracking, just to see even where their diet's at. Like my mom, she's on a restrictive diet. I tracked her diet for a week for her, and then she had the confidence to know that she was getting everything she needed and didn't really need to track again. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's whatever works for people, right?
Yep. So. Yep. Derek, you have anything?
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing, is that the whole compliance issue and getting people, are there things that you guys do to gamify the experience so that people are encouraged to keep track of things, and also you have them in for the long term? I know you said there that you could track and then go like, yeah, I'm fine, but how do you keep people in for the long game?
I think that anything, building a habit around this is really important. I know that there's like different beliefs about how long a habit takes. Some people say 21 days, some people say 66. But I think that when you see any kind of success while tracking, regardless of what your goal is, we have a ton of people that use our app for body recomp. So they want to lose fat, they want to gain muscle. When they start seeing those gains, they're going to stick with it. Like same thing with my magnesium deficiency. When I started hitting my targets with magnesium, I'm like, and I started feeling better. I'm like, oh, I need to make sure that I stay at this level all the time, so I know that I'm going to be in peak physical health. We do gamify the app, and the way that we do it, I'm really passionate about. We have different targets that you can hit. One of my favorite targets is the all targets. So basically, in order to hit 100% on that, which feels very satisfying to me, but you have to basically nail your macro goals and then your micronutrient goals, and those are around your unique body metrics, so your height, your weight, your sex, that kind of thing. And I just think, like, looking back historically, when I hit those like high 90s, it just feels really good.
It's just interesting comparison here, because most of us are talking about tracking macros because there's an aesthetic goal in mind. Mm-hmm. But I want to take a step back and look at what I think is the most important thing, and so does Derek, but that's performance, right? Yeah. And I have constant reminders in my life over the last 24 years of being in business, of being in the fitness business, that when you're undercaloried, there's a huge issue. A few weeks ago, I had a big trip to Costa Rica, got back, was undernourished, wasn't tracking when I was away on the trip because we had specific times of the day we had to eat. I was trying to supplement with shakes, etc., and came back and got back into training and just felt really weak. I assessed a few days after, because I started tracking and realized, like, wow, I'm really undercaloried. And I was doing a conditioning work, and my body, I was going for runs, just wasn't feeling good. I ended up taking about 10 days off of any cardiovascular work, and was just, doing some resistance training, was doing a lot of mobility work, and I was eating, making sure that I was consuming calories. I spent the last 10 days just making sure I was at least at my total daily energy expenditure, like what I would burn during the day. I was at least hitting that, and even trying to go over a little bit. When I jumped back into a run 10 days later, because I was fueled up properly and I knew what was going in my body, I ran way better.
Oh yeah.
Derek, my cardiovascular, my recovery, my strength, everything went through the roof. Was it because you took a day off? Well, I didn't take a day off. I took 10. A lot of people would say, all right, well, are you going to start losing conditioning? I don't think you are, but it was clearly the nutrition portion of it, which allowed me to come back and not be as out of breath. And when I was on the ice playing ice hockey, I was recovering fine. And I wasn't feeling this lactic acid buildup in my legs that I would feel if I was, burning at both ends too much and I wasn't consuming enough nutrition. Because a lot of times we're eating enough food, we're eating the right foods, and we're under the assumption that, oh, this is fine. I eat really healthy. I eat healthy. Eating healthy, I might not categorize it as being healthy. Even if you're eating the right foods, it might not be healthy if you're not getting enough calories in.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm kind of where, obviously not at your level, but the reason that I'm tracking now is purely for performance at this point. I'm going to try to dabble a little bit. We talked about before in ultra running and that kind of thing. And I think where I'm really excited to grow Cronometer the most is in that athletic area. Like we do have some people that track from like the CrossFit games and stuff. I think that most of those people would probably be tracking their nutrition, or I would hope that they would, like I know the difference. Before I ran a marathon last week. Before I did, I was like, the days leading up into that, I'm making sure that I'm going to hit all of my vitamin and mineral goals, my protein goal. I upped my carbs a little bit because I figured that I would be depleting those stores quite quickly. And I felt amazing. I actually felt so good running. And I think that more people that were, you know, even doing endurance sports or working out incorporated tracking, I think that everyone would be better at what they do. So
totally agree with you.
yeah.
Jay?
Has there been any thought, and maybe you already do this, but integration with other apps? Like I know with my Garmin watch, it gives breakdowns of heart rate, you know, minimum heart rate, steps, calories burned. Might even do HRV, heart rate variability, and all these other things. Is there any way to integrate all of this and go like, hey, this is how I ate and all of my vitals look better?
So actually we do that. You can right now sync Cronometer to Garmin. You can sync it to Strava. We have Samsung Health. We have Apple Health. We have Aura, which is what I wear. Fitbit. Cardio, which is it monitors your blood pressure. Like all of those metrics can actually be put into Cronometer. Like the integration, it'll just refresh as you go throughout the day. And then we have a charting library where you could actually like start getting pretty nerdy with your data, which I love. And you could like track your sleep against how many calories you eat. Like you could find out if you eat more on days that you sleep less, or you can find out if you eat like 4,000 calories days after you run. Like all of that data can be pulled into Cronometer already. And then you can put it against any metric or that we track to really get some powerful insights. So if that's something that you're tracking already, Derek, like if you're wearing your Garmin, I would recommend dabbling in tracking nutrition and just seeing what you can glean from that, because I noticed trends in my own health, like after big exercise days, you know, like 40, 50,000 step days, I want to eat my entire refrigerator. And I wouldn't know that if I didn't track honestly. Like one thing I think that's worth talking about is a lot of people, when they throw in the towel on a day, like, oh, I ate this, I don't really want to admit that I ate it to my nutrition tracker because, you know, this box of donuts, it has 3,000 calories. Like those are the days that you should track. You know, I've always said to people, just be honest with yourself. Like there's no shame in any of that. Track it all. And that's where you get the powerful insights. Because if I didn't track those days, I wouldn't know that I want 4 donuts after I run a marathon. So I think that's really important.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because on, you know, people will talk about refeed days or cheat days, which I'm always saying, like, if you're going to do it, don't worry about, this is my opinion.
Yeah.
Don't worry about balancing out the calories. So say you burn 3,000 calories in a day and someone wants to go eat like a burger and fries, or they want to have a chocolate shake. I like the excessive calories on that given day, because I think it's great for your metabolism. I really do. I believe that your body, if it gets used to processing the same foods day in and day out, and the same calories day in and day out, it's not efficient. You know, it's like, are you going to be as efficient in all aspects of running if you just do one type of running all the time? If you're just running, say, you know, the 800 meter, like, yeah, you're going to be great at the 800 meters, but like, what about when you have to run a mile? What happens when you have to run the 400? Bad example, Derek, but like, you get what I'm saying. Like, I want the metabolism to have some flexibility. Now, tracking on your cheat days or on your refeed days, I think is so overlooked. And most people are turning around and they're just like, oh, I'm gonna have this huge meal, and they get so stuffed on that meal, and then they end up not eating for 6 hours, and then they end up trying to eat good for another meal or two, and then they're actually undercaloried that day. And then I think it's almost taking away from the benefit that a cheat or a refeed could be contributing to.
I think track everything, like with no shame. You know, I think especially like we do offer Cronometer Pro, which is basically a professional signs up and then they have access to all their clients' diaries. If you're on say you're on a strict ketogenic diet and you just have a day where you absolutely destroy every carbohydrate you might not want to log that because someone else is looking at it, but I think that that's where the magic happens. Like I could not agree more. Track those days. Just there's this interesting thing about shame, particularly a lot with women. I actually noticed that a little bit with some of your challengers. We're kind of like talking about how they eat, and there is this kind of like pressure to nail everything all of the time. But I think we just need to give ourselves a little bit more grace, a little bit more flexibility. Like one day of having the cheat word I don't really like, because I think food should be enjoyed, and I don't think that there's any good or bad foods. Food doesn't have morals, so I think that people should love their food. But yeah, I think that tracking those things unapologetically, eating those things unapologetically, like it's not going to ruin all of your progress, you know.
And I want to go on record by saying that I never have a problem if someone's going to go off their plan. I have a problem when they turn to me and they're like, I'm not seeing any results, and they're off eating Five Guys 3 nights a week and drinking, and drinking beers. Like, that's the problem that I have. Like, and everyone, I think part of the challenge is sometimes is just need to kind of please me. And I'm like, guys, you got to be honest. You got to be honest, and you got to understand that, you can live a very healthy life without being perfect with this stuff.
Well, and I think that everyone's doing a disservice. They're doing a disservice to themselves. And then to their coach, like people are hiring you, working with you, doing your challenges because they want to achieve a goal, like the path to the goal is not necessarily linear. You're not going from A to B with no hurdles, right? Like that wouldn't even be compelling or interesting or fun. So I think that if people are just like, hey, I hit a bump in the road this weekend, dove headfirst into a bag of M&Ms, that's fine. Like you're not going to, watching you actually with your challengers was so great because people just rely on you for so much more than just the nutrition piece. Like I feel like you were like a life coach to them, which was also really, really cool to see. So
experience from helping Derek out all these years,
Yeah, that's my life coach.
Well, honestly, you're so good at it. Some of the problems that people were coming to you about, like you have a very, very cool head and some good advice. And I was like, a lot of these people they just need help with life, which is so great.
They just need a hug.
They do. Everyone needs a hug.
So if I'm tracking, can other people see what I'm eating? Like, can I put? That you should have full transparency mode, where it's like you get to see everything I'm eating, and that would be really interesting to me. I'd like to see what Don eats every day, every morsel, and see if he actually does cheat.
On the pro version, the person like that's managing you would be able to see what you're eating, but in public, no. But I actually, because I run our Instagram account, a ton of people share their diaries all the time.
Yeah.
Like I was sharing my diary with Don's challengers, and I have some like pretty funny recipes in there because I give everything interesting.
Do you have a share button there? I'm normally just screenshotting it and putting it up, but do you guys have a button that says share to IG?
No, we don't.
Oh, you should.
We did that on Playbook on the app where I could take testimonials. Yeah. So anytime I get someone in giving some feedback, I can say, they're like, thanks a lot, loved it, lost 15 pounds, blah, blah, blah. I can share to IG, and I hit the tag button and their handle automatically pops up on it on stories. Awesome.
Because we just had all hands week. It's like our team building week, and we're planning like what we're doing next year, kind of like the different features we want. And that's one of the things I would love to have is the ability to share, because I think that like we've always been very driven by security and privacy, which is wonderful. Like we are so rigorous in that we definitely don't want anyone's data ever going anywhere that it shouldn't be. So you always own your data as a Cronometer user. But I think that there is this social aspect now in our world that, one of our employees here, he's on his row machine all the time. Shout out to Stan on his row machine. And he actually like competes with people on his Apple Watch with like to see how far they can row at lunchtime. And I'm like, it would be so much fun at some point to have the option for Cronometer users to share their diaries and be like, oh, I nailed 100% today. Like, how did you do? And it's like, oh, I got 70. You know, like I'm a competitive person, so I would like that. But hopefully that's something that we can incorporate.
Yeah. As long as you're not in the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, Don.
I don't know how people do that, by the way. That's insane.
But I did notice that when you were doing questions on your Instagram, Don, that someone like asked about one of the celebrities that you train. They're like, what does he eat in a day? And you're like, let's talk about what you eat in a day instead.
Yeah, I'm like, what do you like? I never understood that either. People will reach out and they'll say, oh, well, what's your diet? What are you eating? Or I want Ryan Reynolds' nutrition plan. And I'm like, what the hell would you want Ryan's nutrition plan for? It might not work for you. Like you might be completely, it makes no sense to me. I mean, it's just, but again, this is not what these people do. And it's not, and they're not expected to know that this is really all individualistic.
Well, and I think like it's always baby steps, right? I mean, someone would like look at your physique or Ryan's physique and be like, oh, I'd love to look like that, right? And it's like, what do you do to get there, right? Obviously, it's more than just nutrition, although I think that, you know, there's a saying that you like can't outwork a bad diet. I would say that would be true. Obviously, if you're busting your butt anywhere and just eating, you know, if I go for a marathon and I burn 2,000 calories, if I'm eating 6,000 calories, it doesn't matter, right? So that's where the tracking. But I think that we were talking this week in our professional development that it's like getting people in the door in baby steps, you know, like let's get people just tracking their macros and then their micros and how we kind of go about educating people more about their health. Like Derek, have you ever tracked your nutrition?
No.
Derek's against it.
Ignorance is bliss, and is when it comes to nutrition. No, I mean conceptually.
I would love to let's play a game called Eliisa Will Change Your Mind. What are your barriers? Like you know what, this is so powerful to me because I want to hear what you think would be the hurdles in tracking your nutrition.
Obviously convenience is one of the things, right? Like, you know, like I think this was years ago when I was working at a university and you know, handling athletes and trying to get them to record and track calories and all that. And then just finding something like there would just be strange foods that you just, well, how do I quantify that? And, you know, just the quantification, anything that makes it more convenient, I think would be more attractive because otherwise it does become a bit of guesswork.
Like I would say, and Dawn and I have been in the trenches for so long, so maybe our opinions on this would matter a little bit less than someone that tracks a little bit less. But I just think like one of our goals, I'll just backtrack, one of our goals is to make food logging magic, like as seamless as we possibly can. Like we have a barcode scanner. So say you eat a food, Derek, and you just like literally scan the label and it will bring up the nutrition information, and then you hit like add to diary, boom. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, I ate out at a restaurant, and this is something to consider. Like, how do I take this plate of food and put it in Cronometer when I didn't prepare it? I don't know what's in it exactly. I always, like in the nccb database that we talked about, there can be like, say I got lasagna and garlic bread, you can just go in and search lasagna. Is it going to be perfect? Absolutely not. Is it going to be better than not tracking at all? Absolutely yes. So I think that there are some barriers, but I think that now for me, 3.5 years in, I spend less than 2 minutes a day tracking. Cronometer is intuitive, so it remembers my preferences. Like it remembers my preferences on things like serving sizes and like commonly logged foods. So if I'm eating a tablespoon of peanut butter, which I will add to this concoction I've developed, it knows. It's like, Eliisa normally eats 1 tablespoon of peanut butter. So it just recommends that. And little hacks like that definitely make it easier, because I do understand we are in a time that time is very precious and limited, and why would you track? But I will say that I think that if you are tracking, maybe you'll get more years on your life, and so the time is relative that you put in.
Is there kind of a downside for certain people if they're, there's like a personality disorder or something, and obsessive compulsiveness, and they take it too seriously?
I love that you just asked this question, because yes, absolutely. I will say that I come from a history of disordered eating for sure. Very strict calorie tracking when I was quite a bit younger. I have seen, on some Reddit threads that people are like, I have this massive sensitivity to things like the word calories. And I tend to lean into my disordered eating if I'm tracking, but I still want to make sure that I'm getting everything I need. We hear that, and we definitely don't want anyone tracking if it's triggering for them. I just actually wrote a blog about all the ways that you can turn off like the word calories or calorie tracking within the app for people that are triggered by that kind of thing. Like, you can literally customize this app to remove anything that you don't want to track. So if you only want to track grams of protein, which I've definitely seen people when they're sharing on their on Instagram stories, just protein. You can turn off calories absolutely everywhere and just focus on that. You could turn off absolutely everything and just track sodium. Like, we really want people to use the app in a way that's meaningful to them specifically. And that was feedback that we had heard, and we felt like it was important to address, because
sorry about that. Go ahead. I was going to say the one area that I think you guys improved the most upon was the generating how many calories the individual is burning during a day. So years ago, when I was recommending this, people were like, well, should I log my calories in? I'm like, don't, it's off, right? Like I just wasn't really buying it. And then recently I went to get an RMR test done. And I didn't only do it on myself, because I find where the most discrepancy is sometimes is when you take someone who's a little bit more highly conditioned and you go and you put them on a Mifflin calculator and you compare that to, say, an RMR test, which is going to measure how many calories they're burning at rest. And you might see them 500 calories off, 400 calories off. Yeah. But I went and I tested with individuals, like typical individuals who are, conditioned well. It was hardly off. So when we were logging the numbers into Cronometer, it was getting them almost to exactly where it was if they were going in for an RMR test. And at that point, I'm like, no, this is amazing. So for those people listening who don't understand, you put in basically your age, your weight, your activity level, right? I mean, am I listing all the right things? And activity level is typically broken down in like, highly active, moderately active, and light activity, and I think sedentary. I'm not sure if I'm getting all those right, but thanks. So then you could choose your activity just based off of the description in that activity level, and it's going to get you within that range. And then I find out if they just start consuming, even if it's under, so say this, just to give an example, Derek, if your total daily energy expenditure comes out to be 3,000 calories, right? But you've been consuming between 1,500 and 2,000. If we could just get you to 2,000 consistently, you're going to see some type of an improvement. And when I say improvement, I mean energy level or sleep, or something's going to start happening. Then what we do is we just slowly start bumping you up every week type of thing, to where we get your body to process more food. So in the beginning, I think the biggest tug of war that I play, or that maybe Cronometer plays, is that when it makes the recommendation, they're like, oh, I can't eat that much food. I'm like, we're not telling you to do that out of the gate. You just got to break yourself into it. But 10 out of 10 times, the first few things they'll see improvements on: energy, sleep quality, mood. Those few things pop up. And if I hear any of those, I'm like, you're on the right track. Keep going.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was just talking yesterday to a woman who's about my size, and we were just talking about food and eating and logging and that kind of thing. And I'm like, I eat a lot. You know, I'm anywhere like just I'm not a big woman, but I'm eating on average like 2,100 calories. And when I told her that, she's like, what? Like, how are you doing that? And this is, you know, I used to consume a diet of less than 1,200 calories a day because that's what I was told you're supposed to do to like lose weight or maintain weight or whatever. And then I was like, same thing. I'm like, how am I ever going to eat 2,000 calories? Now I can, you know, punish that in in half a day really easily. But I have noticed my energy levels are always through the roof, you know, and my weight, a lot of people, women specifically, would be like, how are you eating that much? You gain weight. You know, I did that kind of reverse dieting. I'm not sure if you use that term, Don, but
I do.
Yeah. So I did that reverse dieting to like climb slowly up to, you know, like I ate like 16 and 1,800 calories. And then I've just, you know, I am very active, but I just think it's like my mood is always, I'm always high on life. I always have so much energy. I'm always out giving it my all. Like I was never doing any of that when I was more calorie restricted. So stuff like that is so powerful. Like who doesn't want to eat more? I mean, I do.
Okay.
And obviously this would be valuable. Like I had worked with different sports like bobsleigh, where we'd have a guy who's 200 and we want to get him up to 220 pounds to make weight, you know, on the upper end. So that I assume this would be useful for, you know, positive lean muscle mass gain for those types of scenarios.
That's actually, we just did a bunch of user research and we have a ton of men under the age of 34 that's really all they're using it for, is they want to get some lean muscle. Actually, a number of people in the survey that we did mention that they heard about us through you, Don, which was great. And these guys are looking to do the body recomp. They want to just build muscle. Like, I think that the best way to do that, beyond going to the gym and that kind of thing, is making sure you're getting adequate nutrition. Like if you're not eating enough calories, you're not going to see the same gains, plain and simple, right? So I think that anyone that wants to get bigger, stronger, tracking your nutrition should be a key piece in that. And I know that I'm biased. I work for a nutrition tracking app. Not all of our staff tracks their diets. I obviously really drink our Kool-Aid because I believe in the results that I've seen on multiple levels. So I encourage anyone to just give it a whirl, certainly. And those guys that are in the gym, or the women that are in the gym that are trying to kind of reach an aesthetic goal that includes gaining weight, that's an option in our app as well. You can choose weight gain as an option and work towards that. So
but I know if you've been banging your head against a wall and you're one of these people who are saying, you know what, I eat well and I exercise and I can't burn any body fat, and they're constantly restricting calories. I just think you almost have to do this, especially if you don't have the discipline, because intuitive eating, I actually think, might even take a little bit more discipline, because every meal you got to come in and you got to measure it out, and you got to make sure that like everything's like that, there's not so much volatility. I think when you're mapping things out, and just and I wrote down some numbers earlier. A woman came to me and she's like, you know what, I gotta have, I'm below what I should be consuming. I was like, well, where are you? And she was 250 calories off. She's like, that just scares me. It scares me so much. And I'm like, well, that's nothing. She's like, she's like, well, you're a guy. I'm like, no, I want you to think about this. I said, if we get 10 additional grams of fat, 20 additional grams of carbs, and 20 additional grams of protein, can you do that? She's like, yeah, that's nothing. Yeah. I said, there's your 250 calories. So 10 grams of fat is 90 calories, right? 20 grams of carbs is 80 calories. 20 grams of protein is 80 calories. So 80, 80, and 90, the math is 250. And she was like, oh my God, I'm not stressed out anymore now that you broke it down that way. And I said, now we could take it up a notch. I'm not expecting, that could be one meal for someone your size, or we could cut that up to 2 meals and go, 5 grams of protein, 10 grams of carbs, 10 grams of fat at your post-workout meal, or maybe your afternoon meal, or maybe your breakfast. And she's like, that's nothing. I said, so see, sometimes tracking, where most people get stressed out because they're like, I have to log numbers. It's like anything else. When you're first learning this stuff and you're dropping something on a scale, it might seem a little bit intimidating, but once you know those numbers and you know where you need to be, and then you can just every day, and then you're able to start intuitively eating, Derek, a little bit more. Then you know what 4 ounces of salmon or 6 ounces of salmon looks like, or 8 ounces of rice. You can go into a restaurant and eye it. And if you're within a gram or two, who really gives a shit? At least you're, not falling off, the path so much. So I would urge everyone to consider doing that if they haven't. Give it 2 weeks. Go in, take the first 5 to 7 days to just screw it up. Don't even worry about hitting your numbers. Just screw it up. Be perfect on one meal. A couple days later, make sure 2 meals, 3 meals, whatever it is, build up a consistency. Then when you get consistent, you'll find that week 2 gets easy. Then you're going to start noticing one of those 3 changes that I mentioned. And there's a potential 4th, and that's body composition. Because a lot of times when we, 9 out of 10 times when I've increased calories for people who are undernourished for a long period of time, they see some type of body composition improvement.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd ask people, and Derek, this can be geared at you, what do you have to lose? Really? What do you have to lose by tracking your nutrition versus what could you possibly gain? I've never asked it like that before.
Actually, well said.
But when Dawn was talking about that, it's true, 2 weeks of your time. And, the woman that you were talking about that was nervous about increasing her calories, one of the best things, you're getting to know your body so well with an app like this, right? You know what works for you. People have identified food sensitivities. That's how I found out I can't have garlic, which was a very, very sad day. but if say that woman was eating 250 calories more, and then she's keeping an eye on her weight and it's going up and she doesn't want it to. Okay, cool. You compare it back then, right? There's so much option for just getting to know what works for you individually. That's the gift that Cronometer's really given me, is I just know my body so much better than I would have otherwise. You can use it for anything, tracking headaches or mood or anything. So I don't think there's a small downside. Derek?
I love it. Derek?
Hey, I've been intuitive eating for 52 years, so I think I'm doing okay.
I think that if that's that you're doing great. 52. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Derek, listen, we're already 50 minutes in. Eliisa, we can't thank you enough for your time. I don't know if we're going to be able to get Derek to track, but look, I think I think it's a great example, Derek. At the end of the day, I just want you to improve, right? I just want you, or I want you to be able to live a level of high quality, or just better. Just being better to me is important. But if you're getting it done, doing what you're doing, and to each his own. If you don't want to give it a shot, Derek, you want to be open-minded to it, I don't mind.
I'll keep you on as my life coach for a couple of more weeks, Don. We'll see.
We will get him, Eliisa.
How about Derek, you just send pictures of what you eat to me for 2 weeks?
Well, that's one final question. Will we have sort of artificial intelligence, AI, that will allow people to take a picture and get some sort of quantification? That would be, and just maybe sell a life-size version of Dawn's thumb that they put in the picture to scale it.
You know what? That sounds like something out of a Black Mirror episode, but I guarantee you at some point that there will absolutely be that functionality. We just introduced a recipe importer. So you can take a recipe off a website and it will pull the data from the website into our app. But not only will it pull that data, it pulls the best quality data. So it's just unbelievable. If a recipe calls for spaghetti sauce, it's going to pull the one with all the vitamins and minerals. And that's going to cut down on, people who are in the kitchen all the time. It's going to cut down on their...
I've seen the tech. I've actually seen the tech where there's a company that approached me a while ago where you could take a picture of the food, like a bowl, and it actually separates the items, and it actually is going to be able to, but it's far from it. But, at the end of the day, Cronometer will have that feature one day. It's going to happen.
I feel like it absolutely will. Right now, I don't think we're not going to serve anything to anyone that we don't stand by and believe is accurate. because a lot of people use us to track, you know, like there's people who their children are tube fed, they're monitoring their children's nutrition. We can't guess with stuff like that. You know, there's people with epilepsy that are tracking for keto diets, and we have to be sure about our data. So when we get to that point, we'll be there because we're going to be cutting edge.
Awesome. Well, Eliisa, thank you for your time. Can you tell everyone where they can find you on social media, Cronometer, yourself? Do you have any questions?
Yeah, for sure. I'm very receptive to DM slides. Any social media, really, you can reach us. We're at Cronometer on Twitter, at Cronometer_official on Instagram, Cronometer on Facebook. We do have a Cronometer group that you can join that people can ask a ton of questions. There's over 3,000 people in there now. Everyone is so helpful. Our support staff is amazing. It's support@cronometer.com if anyone has any direct questions. We also have webinars. You can get in touch with us, a real human. There will be myself or someone on the customer service team answering all the time. So we're pretty quick on the ball if people have questions.
Well, I'm smiling, and so is Derek deep down inside. I could tell. There he is. Hey, Derek. Derek, I love you, man. I love you. Eliisa, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Derek, that was a great episode. I think it's going to be a great education for people who want to track.
Yes. No pressure.
I'm tracking so many other things right now. It's driving me crazy. So
Derek's coming out to stay with me for a few days, so I'm going to make him track when he's out with me. I'm going to teach him for a couple of days. 2 days, Derek. I'm
only going to eat what Don tells me to eat. So
come back shredded. You're going to come back shredded.
There you go.
Freaking running fast.
What do you do professionally, Derek?
As little as possible. Mostly work like with professional teams and major universities for their programming, and mostly speed training for NFL teams and NHL, NBA, that sort of thing. So more of a
Derek's
consulting.
the Babe Ruth. Derek's the Babe Ruth of run coaches.
Oh my gosh. I wish I had known this an hour ago, because I would have fired so many questions about getting my run time.
You just got to track every step. No, just kidding.
Guys, thanks a lot. That was awesome.
Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Take care.
Thanks, Eliisa. Bye.